Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into that massive, honestly kind of chaotic gap between raw, messy data and actual actionable business strategy. We are just talking about slapping together some pretty dashboards here. We're demystifying the actual engineering logic behind key performance indicators, or KPIs. We're going to explore exactly how data engineers architect these absolutely vital tools right from the ground up.
So think about the last time you pulled up an executive dashboard. Ask yourself, are those numbers just counting things that happened, or are they actually measuring your success? That single question hits the nail on the head. It's the core difference between a simple metric and a true KPI. And honestly, it completely changes how a business operates and how an engineering team actually builds the underlying data models. To break this all down, here is our roadmap for the explainer. 1. Decoding key performance indicators. 2. Anatomy of a KPI. 3. The data engineer's role. And 4. Implementation and visualization. Let's get right into it.
Starting right off with Section 1, Decoding Key Performance Indicators.
Okay, so by definition, based on our source material, a key performance indicator is a measurable value showing how effectively goals are achieved. But, for a data engineer, the operative word there isn't just effectively, it's target. A KPI is basically an engineering contract. It says, hey, we aren't just going to track a random number. We are going to rigorously compare it against a highly specific, predefined business objective. It requires building a system that fundamentally understands what success actually looks like.
And here is the absolute sharpest contrast between the two. A metric, well, that's just a raw measurement. It's the ruler measuring the puddle. But a KPI is a goal-driven metric. It's the ruler measuring exactly how close the arrow is to the bullseye. Remember, every KPI is a metric, but definitely not every metric is a KPI. Without a hard business target attached to it, you're really just hoarding data and wasting compute power on numbers that literally don't drive any decisions.
Let's ground this with a real example. A warehouse tracking total revenue is just generating a metric. Sure, it tells you what happened, but it offers zero context on whether you should pop the champagne or sound the alarm, right? But if you transform that into sales growth greater than or equal to 10%, well, suddenly the data has an opinion. You instantly know if you're winning or losing. It's actually kind of surprising how many enterprise dashboards out there are just clogged with expensive, complex raw metrics masquerading as KPIs, offering no real navigational value whatsoever. Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of a KPI. Every functional KPI out there is built on 4 non-negotiable components. First up, you have the value. That's the actual raw measure pulling from your tables. Second, the goal, your established line in the sand. Third, the status. This is the immediate real-time comparison of your value versus your goal to tell you if you're over or under. And fourth, the trend, the historical trajectory over time. A missing component here simply means an incomplete story. For instance, you might know you're currently failing a goal, but the trend line is what tells you if you're at least failing slightly less than you did yesterday. No, this structure is absolutely critical because it unlocks dimensions. Instead of just looking at a flat top-level profit margin, dimensions allow us to slice and dice the data. We can look at it by specific store location, timestamp, or even product SKU. For a data engineer, adding dimensions isn't just some neat UI feature. It means literally multiplying the complexity of the underlying data model. It requires architecting incredibly robust joins and highly optimized indexing so the business can drill down instantly from a massive global view straight down to a granular level, all without crashing the data warehouse.
Let's look at how this scales across the entire analytics journey, because KPIs definitely evolve. They start out at descriptive analytics, calculating exactly what is happening right now. Then, they mature into diagnostic analytics, drilling into those dimensions to figure out why it happened. But the ultimate test of your data infrastructure is pushing them into predictive analytics to actually forecast future values based on historical trends. And finally, the holy grail, reaching prescriptive analytics, where the data model automatically highlights the exact actions needed to course correct before a goal is even missed.
But to ensure those prescriptive actions actually work, your KPIs must be ruthlessly curated. The source material points out that they need to be specific, strictly measurable with pristine data, actionable, bound by a clear time frame, and highly relevant to the core business strategy. If a KPI doesn't hit every single one of those marks, it's not a performance indicator. It's just visual noise that's distracting your stakeholders and wasting valuable engineering cycles. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the data engineer's role.
This is where the magic actually happens. Data engineers are honestly the unsung heroes of business intelligence. Because let's face it, a beautifully designed KPI is completely worthless if the underlying data is stale or inaccurate. The engineering domain requires building resilient, automated pipelines to seamlessly move this data from source to destination. It means enforcing rigorous data quality checks because, as we all know, garbage in equals garbage out. And crucially, it requires optimizing incredibly complex SQL queries so that massive, multi-terabyte datasets can be aggregated, calculated, and served to an executive dashboard in literally a matter of milliseconds.
Finally, let's wrap everything up with Section 4, Implementation and Visualization.
So here is the actionable blueprint for actually getting this done. Step 1. Define the raw measure using your base data. Step 2. Lock in the target goal that defines success. Step 3. Architect the dimensions that will provide the necessary slice and context. Step 4, and this is the heavy lifting, implement this complex logic natively inside the data warehouse so the core compute happens as close to the data as possible. And finally, Step 5, push it out to the visualization layer. Let's take a look at how that logic actually comes together.
When you look at a raw drill-down view, you can really see how beautifully structured this logic is. Imagine a profit margin grouped chronologically by year, like 2010 to 2012, and then drilled down into specific months. You can see exactly how the dimensions interact dynamically with the strict 0.02 target goal. The system calculates the margin, compares it to the goal, and automatically outputs status icons. You get green circles for a hit, red diamonds for a miss, right alongside directional trend arrows. This is pure, unadulterated data logic exposed before any fancy graphical polish is applied.
And then that raw tabular logic is translated into the final visual climax, the executive dashboard. Those complex warehouse computations become intuitive traffic lights showing instant status at a single glance. Gauges track real-time progress toward revenue targets, like seeing you're at exactly 85% completion. And trend lines clearly map historical performance right against target benchmarks. The heavy data engineering is completely abstracted away, leaving business leaders with immediate, tangible, and actionable insights that actually drive the company forward.
So if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, remember this ultimate capstone formula. A true KPI is simply a raw metric, tightly bound to a specific goal, and grounded in multidimensional business context. That contextual framework of timeframes and analytics is exactly how rigorous data engineering directly supports and drives critical business decision-making.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Take a hard look at the dashboards you maintain and track today. Are you just staring at passive metrics, or are you utilizing true, goal-driven key performance indicators? How will you transform that raw data to drive your next critical success? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.